Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be going through my recent library hauls, and this is going to be a pile of possibilities for my summer reading, starting with the book on top, which I have already read through and finished. It's another Grumpy Cat book. If you saw one of my other recent library haul videos I did, like a different Grumpy Cat book, who could resist Grumpy Cat? I absolutely love cats so much. I help with taking care of a bunch of community cats, and this book has lots of little cute fun activities and games and stuff. Like, for example, there's a crossword puzzle and you quickly catch on every single word is known, and it's like, it so reminds me of Life's little book of destruction, sorry for the bad angle, from the 1990s. And I believe there was a spin-off book, like Life's little book of like making people angry or something. That's not the title, but it was very, very similar to the Life's little book of destruction, mottos, and it just, really, really fun stuff, particularly if you're like a curmudgeon or a cynic, or you just, like Grumpy Cat stuff like that. And there's like, like connect the dots and just, like basically making people frown and like realizing, oh, look on the darker side of life. This was a really, really fun book. And next is a historical event. I've known about it for a while. The book came like this. I don't know if it was intentionally like printed like this, or someone who had it out for me from the library previously like destroyed it or did this or whatever, but I've known about this event for a while. This happened in 1888. This was in the Midwest, and here's the description in the beginning. In 3 minutes, the front subtracted 18 degrees from the air's temperature. Then evening gathered in, and temperatures kept dropping in the northwest gale. By morning on Friday, January 13th, 1888, more than 100 children lay dead on the Dakota-Nebraska prairie, and on the back it says, thousands of impoverished northern European immigrants were promised that the prairie offered land, freedom, and hope. The disastrous blizzard of 1888 revealed that their free homestead was not a paradise, but a hard, unforgiving place, governed by natural forces they neither understood nor controlled. And America's heartland would never be the same, and I'm pretty sure this is the same blizzard. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, I should have looked this up before I started filming. It's the same blizzard depicted in The Long Winter in the Little House book by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And this is another one. I was just browsing the shelves when I saw this, when I noticed it was a historical fiction. It looked like something maybe I would be interested in. It looks like it kind of might be a romance novel, but again, I have absolutely no problem with historical romances, and particularly in the last, I would say maybe like 10, 20-ish years or so, romance, particularly historical romance, it's come like absolutely so far. The genre is not at all what it used to be like, in the 70s or the 60s, with, like Fabio look-alike bare-chested dudes on the cover, just like bodice rippers. In modern day historical romance writers, they put a lot of more like, research into their books. So like, the history, obviously it's not the main portion of the plot like it would be with like a straight historical novel that, happens to feature a love story prominently, but the history in a historical romances these days is used as more than a shallow window dressing like it used to be in the old days. And unfortunately, again, this is one of those things from the library, they just conveniently put the sticker right over part of the synopsis. But anyway, I can see it starts in Newport, Rhode Island in 1900. That's where a lot of, rich swells like to go on vacation in the Gilded Age. Charlotte Hale isn't part of that world, the rich and famous world that the sticker is blocking out part of the first line. She's a working girl, a secretary for a local newspaper, who dreams of becoming a real reporter. When her boss offers her an assignment, she jumps at the opportunity. She'll go undercover as a governess to investigate a scandal about her new employer, Daniel Wilmot, a young widowed professor of religion who writes a controversial column in a rival newspaper. Charlotte's qualms about misrepresenting herself to Daniel soon morph into a deeper quandary. How can she get the goods on a man who turns out to be so honorable? How can she plot the downfall of a family that has inspired her to rediscover her faith? And how can she protect the man she now loves from a scheme she's been part of since the beginning? And the author, Cara Lynn James, has also written a book called Love on a Dime. I'm pretty sure that's also a historical novel, but they only had this one. And I'm pretty sure this isn't like, a sequel or a companion to that other book. It seems to be a standalone as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully I will really enjoy that book. And this, I've mentioned in a previous video, the local one of the branches of the local library system I'm currently in. They like to do displays throughout the year, like every month they'll like a different, I'm sorry, I don't know the correct terminology. It's like it's a thing like near the shelves. It's kind of like flat and you can display them, I guess, kind of similar to what the vertical file or whatever used to be. And so like, oh, we're having like going through A to Z throughout the entire year of the people, like biographies or like people born in these months of the year. Or, oh, this cool astronomical event is coming up. Here's some books about space, or, you know, how to like clean out your house, or raising children, or like dating again in your 50s after you've been divorced or widowed. And they have like a display on Magick with a CK this month. I've been interested in modern witchcraft and so-called neo-pagan religion since I saw a book my father had gotten from one of his coworkers. It was by Scott Cunningham. It was about the religion of Wicca. I think it might have been called the Today's Modern Witch or something like that. I'll look it up and put a line to it in the description box. But anyway, ever since then, I've been really, really fascinated by it. Although obviously I'm personally not like into witchcraft. My religion is Judaism, but I am interested in I wouldn't call it like a denomination so much. It's just, you know, some people do this. It's called a Jewitchery. So you're Jewish, but you incorporate aspects that don't really conflict with Judaism into your own personal practice. Like, for example, you will change the language of the blessing so you're addressing a goddess instead of a male god, and just like you'll do a couple of, you know, spells and such that aren't really conflicting particularly much with Judaism. Although, of course, obviously the Orthodox would say, oh, that's totally not something you should be doing at all. But, you know, whatever, that's a subject for a whole other thing. And this looked really, really cool, like HausMagick, transform your house with witchcraft. What most homes are missing. Isn't a beautiful sofa? Or the perfect decor. It's simply the intention to make them feel special. This is a spell book of interior alchemy. It is about joining the astral plane and the material world to help you to transform the energy in your home. And there's a couple of, you know, pictures and stuff. There's recipes. I almost always get several cookbooks out when I'm at the library, but I've never shown them in my, you know, library hauls because that's not really what my channel is about. I don't really do any books about like cooking or baking. But anyway, I actually own this book, Forever Amber by Kathleen Winsor. I first read it in 2004 when I was in the final stages of recovering from my very severely shattered tibia and fibula, so I still couldn't walk when I read it. I thought I had put my Forever Amber copy in a box of special books that were going to be going with me when I was taken to South Carolina 6 years ago, but unfortunately it seems that box went into storage, and it also had my Russian dictionary, the portable Dante with the Lawrence Binion translation on my original copy of the Decameron, and a couple of other really special books, which, yeah, it really, really sucks. I've been apart from them for so long, and my copy of Forever Amber was printed in 1944, so it's from the first year of publication. I don't think it was a first edition, but obviously it was one of the first editions, and it's a green paperback, and the text is printed in 2 columns on very thin pages, which I presume was due to, you know, conserve paper for the war effort. And this is one of the best historicals I've ever read, and it's one of the very few non-children's or non-middle grade books I've ever read about the 17th century, and it's really, really awesome. The author did so much research about this era. She totally, like, completely makes it feel so real and alive, and it's just so wonderful. I have a review of this on my current blog. I'm sorry, I based it off of a blog post which I wrote for my old Angel Fire site, and I had to edit it down for my blog, but the blog post on the current blog is still like 2,000 some words, because like I was basically giving away the entire point-by-point plot on the old Angel Fire book review, and I don't do that at all anymore. I don't give away, you know, spoilers and such. I just oh, what will happen, or, you know, just kind of leave you hanging and wanting more instead of just basically like spelling the whole thing out and ruining the surprises. And this book is frequently compared to a Regency England era Gone with the Wind, because Amber, like Scarlet, is constantly in love with and chasing the one man she knows she can never really have, and she has like adventures and marriages and becomes lovers with all these other dudes along the way, and eventually she becomes the mistress of King Charles II of England, but always Lord Bruce Carleton is always in her heart the man she really, really once. And like the end is also very similar to Gone with the Wind. Like, you know, Amber realizes like, oh, I've got to get back with Bruce. He's my man. We need to be together no matter what. And I'm just gonna go like chase after him and see if we can finally like reconcile our differences and be together forever. And I just could not recommend this book more highly. I would love to do a video about it, because it's just, if you're really interested in historical fiction set in the 17th century, which, as far as I know, I mean, this isn't an era I've like read widely in, obviously, but as far as I know, it's just not something that people frequently write about. They're more choosing, you know, like the 19th century, the 20th century, Victorian era, steampunk, you know, like World War to the U.S. Civil War, the French Revolution, but I just am not really aware of particularly a lot of 17th century historical novels. So if you like that century, you want to learn more about it, I really, really cannot recommend this book more highly. I absolutely love it. The library also has a current display about dictators, and I just couldn't resist this when I saw it was a graphic novel on Putin's Russia, The Rise of a Dictator by Darryl Cunningham. And I've been interested in graphic novels, as I've said in a number of other videos, since I took a class in young adult literature in autumn of 2001. That was one of the units which I most enjoyed in the class. I really didn't like most of the other YA books I read in that class. I guess, YA, or at least current YA, isn't really my thing so much, but, graphic novels are really, really awesome. And it's just a shame what Tsar Vladimir has done to Russia, because, like most Russian people are not like he is at all. He's just like misrepresenting the country to the world and just turning it back into a totalitarian dictatorship like Stalin did. And because I absolutely love, natural disasters and shipwrecks and stuff, I checked this book out, Ship Ablaze, about the General Slocum disaster, which happened in New York Harbor in 1904. It's by Edward T. O'Donnell, and not sure the percentage, but I know like a lot of the people on board the ship were like German Americans and German immigrants. It was just, an absolutely horrible disaster, and there weren't many survivors. I was watching a video fairly recently on this channel called Titanic Guy, I believe, by Roth Abula. He does a lot of videos about Titanic history, and sometimes he'll do about other shipwrecks. And he was saying in another video about, like, I think top 10 other shipwrecks you might not be aware of. Many were from the more modern era, not so much historical. And he was saying, obviously, it was a disaster, a human tragedy, but in some ways, Titanic was kind of a success story, because it took about 2.5 hours for the ship to sink. So it took, like, it had chances for so many more people to get into lifeboats. Obviously, like, not nearly enough people were saved, but compared with things like, the General Slocum and other things, like, they had, many more survivors, because some of these other shipwrecks, they just floundered or caught on fire so quickly, there was barely a chance to save anybody. It was just, horrible. And this is a synopsis. I'm sorry for the noise outside. That's, I think, a garbage truck. There were few experienced swimmers among over 13,000 Lower East Side residents who boarded the General Slocum on June 15, 1904. It shouldn't have mattered, since the steamship was chartered only for a languid excursion from Manhattan to Long Island Sound, but a fire erupted minutes into the trip, forcing hundreds of terrified passengers into the water. By the time the captain found a safe shore for landing, 1,021 had perished. It was New York's deadliest tragedy prior to September 11, 2001. The only book available on this compelling chapter in the city's history, Ship Ablaze draws on first-hand accounts to examine why the death toll was so high, how the city responded, and why this event failed to achieve the infamy of the Titanic's 1912 demise or the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, masterfully capturing both the horror of the event and the heroism of the men, women, and children who faced crumbling life jackets in inaccessible lifeboats. As the Inferno quickly spread, historian Edward T. O'Donnell spotlights an important incident with which most Americans are unfamiliar. Enhanced by moving photographs, Ship Ablaze brings to life a bygone community while honoring the victims of that forgotten day. And speaking of shipwrecks, here is another book about a much more famous shipwreck. I'm really, really interested in Titanic history, everything but that disgusting 1997 movie, like trying to pretend an MTV-era love story set in 1912 was in any way realistic, like an upper-class girl, like, happily bedding down in the back seat of a car with a steerage passenger. Like, seriously? That is so completely historically inaccurate, as I have ranted about so many times, but this is obviously real history. The Ship of Dreams, The Sinking of the Titanic, and the End of the Edwardian Era by Gareth Russell. In April 1912, 6 notable people were among those privileged to experience the first-class passage on the Ship of Dreams, the RMS Titanic. Lucy Leslie, Countess of Roths, son of the British Empire, Tommy Andrews, American captain of industry John Thayer and his son Jack, Jewish-American immigrant Ida Strauss, and American model and movie star Dorothy Gibson. Within a week of setting sail, they were all caught up in the horrifying disaster of the Titanic's sinking. Today, we can see their stories in the Titanic voyage as the beginning of the end of the established hierarchy of the Edwardian era. Writing with the immediacy and urgency of a novelist, using previously unpublished sources, deck plans, journals, and surviving artifacts, historian Gareth Russell immerses us in a time of unprecedented change in British and American history. Through these passengers' intertwining stories, he examines social, technological, political, and economic forces that would change their lives just as much as their intimate experiences of bravery, tragedy, and selflessness. Masterful in its superb grasp of the forces of history, gripping in its moment by moment account of the sinking, revelatory in discounting long held myths, and lavishly illustrated with color and black and white photographs, this absorbing, accessible, and authoritative account of the Titanic's life and death is destined to become the definitive book on its subject, so I'll really look forward to reading this one. This also came from the display about books on dictators, the Infernal Library on Dictators, the books they wrote, and other catastrophes of literacy by Daniel Kalder. And I couldn't this because it's about, books in addition to like Dictators. I absolutely love the macabre, the dark, depressing sides of history and human nature. Since the days of the Roman Empire, dictators have written books. But in the 20th century, despots enjoyed unprecedented print runs to, literally, captive audiences. The titans of the genre, Stalin, Mussolini, and Khomeini, among them, produced theoretical works, spiritual manifestos, poetry, memoirs, and even the occasional romance novel, and established a literary tradition of boundless tedium that continues to this day. How did the production of literature become central to the running of regimes? What do these books reveal about the dictatorial soul? And how can books and literacy, most often viewed as inherently positive, cause immense and lasting harm? Putting daunting research to revelatory use, Daniel Kalder asks and brilliantly answers these questions. Marshaled upon the beleaguered shelves of the Infernal Library are the books and commissioned works of the 20th century's most notorious figures. Their words led to the deaths of millions. Their conviction in the significance of their own thoughts brooked no argument. It is perhaps no wonder, then, that many dictators began their career as writers. And because I absolutely cannot resist books about cute animals, I thought this was really cute. Cats on the Job. 50 famous felines who purr, mouse, and even sing for their supper. We frequently think about, the dogs and horses and carrier pigeons about the most obvious animals who work, but, cats have jobs too, and not just as, the mousers and on the Navy ship cats, and sometimes there have even been, military cats. They're one of my absolute favorite animals. I can't wait until I, am in my own home again and I can have some pet cats instead of just helping with community cats. And since I'm hopefully going to be making Aliyah, moving to Israel sooner than later, there'll be so many cute little feral cats to help with taking care of and seeing and photographing every day. I just absolutely love cats. And here's another book about animals with jobs. This time it's dogs, and we're much more familiar with the stories about dogs who work. In the subtitle, The Canines We Cannot Live Without. Oh, this is one of my favorite breeds, the Newfoundland, although most of my favorite dog breeds are toy dogs. In fact, I love so many toy dogs. It would be better to have a list of favorite toy dogs and favorite breeds who aren't toy dogs, and it's filled with fun, cute little pictures and descriptions of dogs working and just other things in general to dogs and what things dogs have that make them really good for those, particular jobs. I don't have any dogs myself either, but when I do have my own home again, I really am looking forward to getting some dogs, although I have many other animals on my list for getting someday, hopefully, although obviously money and space and time are a big, commitment and stuff. You can't have infinite animals, contrary to what all these 20-something and teenagers have on PetTube. No normal people can really have a miniature zoo. OMG, meet my 120 animals, and I just bought 5 more lizards and snakes even after I just had another 10 bought last week. And here's another clickbait video. I'm definitely not going to be one of those animal hoarders on PetTube just pretending, I just have a lot of pets. This also came from the display on Magick with the CK Awakening the Chakras. If you saw one of my recent videos, I bought some big hoop earrings with stones in the chakra colors, obviously because my ears are now stretched, I'm going to have to wear them through eyelets and ear skins. But I absolutely, love Eastern wisdom, where the chakras come from, and just the mystical, the paranormal, the unexplained phenomenon. And chakras are also part of magic with the CK, and there's some beautiful color pictures in here. And when I know this is like a whole like off-topic thing, but one of my favorite YouTube channels is Joe T's Hypnotic Labs, and Joe Tracy, when he's frequently doing like the relax yourself for the auto hypnosis for whatever the purpose of the like the meditation is, he'll like do you like envisioning the chakras like starting like all going down and like working all the way up, when you like imagine like light of the color associated with that chakra like filling that part of your body or your entire body, and then they're all merging together. His labs are sometimes, so relaxing, and it's so late at night I often unfortunately end up falling asleep during that part of the meditation, or just falling asleep during the meditation and like waking up, and he's like, now your time here is almost done, and like, when did it start? I was asleep for the last like 30 or 40 minutes. But anyway, I'm going to really enjoy look forward to going through this book, all these like gorgeous, absolutely beautiful pictures. And in case you can't tell, I absolutely love jewelry, even though I pride myself on being like rather tomboyish and gender defiant in my interests. Obviously, I don't like present in a particularly like masculine looking way, but in my like, interest and behaviors and thought processes and stuff, I've always prided myself on not being very stereotypically girly at all. And I absolutely have always loved jewelry, and making jewelry is something, an interest I've always kind of had at the back of my mind. I don't know if I would, turn it into actual like, small business, or maybe just make some for my own personal enjoyment and stuff. But this is some like really interesting, cool stuff to have. Like maybe I could eventually, start a fun little hobby business. Who knows? This is the last book, which I again saw when I was browsing shelves. You find some really, really interesting books you might not have like thought to get or known about at all, like the history of the bicycle, a coffee table book. I don't currently have a bike. It's been like a long time since I've ridden one, but I'm really, really looking forward to having a bike again someday, particularly because if I, make Aliyah, Israel, unlike, well, most of the world, not just Israel, does not have like freaking car-dependent suburbs all over. They have actual like walkable cities, and so you don't have to like take a car on the highway to go anywhere. You actually walk places, or you bike around town, or you like take good public transportation for places you can't get to easily on your own 2 feet, or taking a bicycle. So I'm really, really looking forward to maybe hopefully like being able to, bike around town to do a lot of, errands, and just like, go to the park and stuff. And all of course, since I love history, I love, like vintage bicycles. One of the folders on my iPhoto library is about, vintage bikes, like advertisements. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this video wasn't too rambly and all over the place. It was completely unscripted. Oh, and if you're wondering, I did name Depression Rabbit, whom you might have seen me unboxing in my recent What's Cheering Me Up video. I decided to name him Gumdrop. Doesn't he just look like a cute little round gumdrop? And sometimes gumdrops are blue. These rabbits are really, really powerful on mental health aids. That plushy dreadfuls, like, believe it or not, stuffed animals are really, really good for mental health. And that's, oh, sorry, he's coming off the shelf now. You guys just, like, hold him for the rest of the video. And that's my Sagittarius rabbit. They also have a line of zodiac fluffs, and I'm getting some more in the mail, and they have some coming up that haven't been released yet, or that are still like in production. And thank you guys again very, very much for watching. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing if you enjoy content like this. And see you guys again very soon. Bye.